Dirk Sterner Taxidermy, Wild Rose Casino in Clinton, Streets Maintenance, the Oxyokin in the Amanas, Premier Automotive in North Liberty, the Sanctuary Pub on South Gilbert, Harty and Stocker Jewelers, 101 South Dubuque Street, downtown Iowa City, the Midtown Family Restaurants, Supple's Flowers, home of 1-800-800-ROSE, Supple's Building and Remodeling, GT Carr and his great crew, Mike's E-Keys for cars, Steve Anderson, Hawkeye Title and Settlement, and Patrick Eads, his son Tyler, and the whole staff at Deary Brothers Ford on Mormon Trek. Here's Tom Suter, Pat Harty from HawkFanatic.com, and Coach Don Patterson.
Okay, well, Coach, obviously things did not turn out how we wanted to Saturday. I thought our defense played lights out, and our offense did not get off the plane. Your thoughts?
Well, I said this, Tom, right after the game. I don't think I've ever been more proud of a defensive performance than I was on Saturday night. I don't know that our guys can play much better than what they played. The only disappointment they had, based on the way the game unfolded, was that they were not able to generate a turnover. And we had a couple of good chances there, too, of course, and we're not able to get that done. But otherwise, it was a wonderful performance by our defense. I've got charted no less than 8 tackles in the open field that are not easy to make, and we made 8 of them in one game. That's a lot. That prevents a lot of big plays because number 2 and number 7 are not your average backs, and we continually tackle them sometimes in difficult situations. And I'm sure even though they won the game, they were frustrated that they simply could not shake our tackles. So hats off to us for being able to get that done.
Yeah, I thought, first of all, good morning, Don. I thought defense and Torrey Taylor, as usual, 50 yards on 7 punts. And Michigan had 213 yards, I believe. I don't have the stats in front of me, but they couldn't run the ball. And once they couldn't run the ball, to me, they looked like a very mediocre offense. They kind of look like Iowa in some ways, a better version of Iowa, I guess.
Exactly.
And John, I've never been a huge fan of J.J. McCarthy. I don't want to knock him. I just think he's overrated. I just have never been a huge believer in him. Am I wrong?
Well, you know what? I kind of feel that way about him, too. I simply feel this way. They asked me before the game, they said, is there a weakness related to J.J. McCarthy? And I said, well, I think maybe the one that's most obvious to me, he's a very competent quarterback, but he's competent to a fault sometimes. And he's gotten by with it in general. And the one thing I could identify that he absolutely needs to correct going forward, he has a habit, if he breaks contain, if he's outside the pocket and he's running at good speed, still trying to find a receiver downfield, he is not hesitant to throw the ball back inside against the grain. That is a no-no. Typically, when he throws that pass, I don't care who he is, he really has no idea if somebody might get into the throwing line because he simply can't assess where defenders are at that point in time. He's gotten by with that a couple, 3 times at least, probably more. I know he even commented that Harbaugh would comment from the sideline, no, don't throw it. And then after he threw it, it was caught. And Harbaugh said, well, I guess he might be lucky enough to get by with it, but it's going to catch up with him at some point in time. Now, hopefully it doesn't cost Michigan an opportunity here in the playoffs, but you never know. It certainly might.
I will say in fairness, Michigan did, that 18, the tight end, he had a huge drop where if he catches that ball, he had a ton of running room and he dropped it. I just didn't think Michigan played that well on offense, but that's a big credit to the Iowa defense. But Don, before I wanted to ask you one thing before we get going. The college playoff. Alabama gets in, Florida State doesn't. Alabama is in because the committee obviously believes Florida State with its second or third team quarterback is not as good as Alabama right now. So, but Alabama has that one loss by 10 points at home to Texas. Florida State's perfect. What do you view? Should the playoff be about rewarding somebody for what they accomplished under tough circumstances? They beat Louisville with their set backup quarterback, but Alabama beat the number 1 team in the country, and it's Alabama. So what are your thoughts on that? On who should have gotten in between those two teams?
Well, based on what I know, if I were on the committee, I would have cast a vote for Alabama.
Okay, because they're better now.
And I'll tell you why. Yeah, at this point in time, Florida State is not as good as the other four. And my heart goes out to them because you can't do better than a perfect season. And truthfully, you can do better than a perfect season. You can beat Louisville by more than 16-6 when all the cards are on the table.
Okay.
You know, they knew going into that game they got to make a statement against Louisville, and they simply weren't able to do it. And we all understand why. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that was the third quarterback. Is that right?
Well, I don't know who played for sure. It was either going to be – I believe it was the third because the second was in concussion protocol.
That's correct.
Yeah, and no, Jordan Travis was having a Heisman Trophy-like season when he went down. It's really sad.
Right.
And I will say, in fairness to the committee, they do have a clause that says, hey, we have the right to pick a team over another team if that other team has an injury situation that's preventing them. Okay, I was just kind of curious because the argument I'm hearing is then why play the games? Why? To me, some people say they should be rewarded for overcoming adversity, but that's really not what the committee's about. The committee wants to get the four best teams in there at that moment, right?
That's right. And frankly, if you were playing great in September, that really doesn't carry much weight. What matters is at the end of the year when those huge games are played.
Okay.
What matters is just playing best then. And you certainly have to give. And let's not forget, Alabama beat the two-time
you're right.
national champions.
Okay, yep.
And they were, as I understand it, that game could have certainly gone either way, too.
Sure, yeah.
But the truth is, Alabama had to make a big play to win the game, and they did it.
Okay, back to the Hawks.
Well, the other thing is they weren't going to have a playoff without an SEC team.
That was the narrative. Yeah, that was a lot. This was the ultimate test, and I do get it. I if they didn't have that clause in there, I'd be way more in favor of Florida State. I did think the Florida State AD's statement. I mean, he acted like it was world peace, was like we are the threat of going to war. Right. I mean, I get it. It's big to these people. Okay, but now go ahead. I'm sorry.
About Florida State, the guy we're talking about being out might have ended up winning a Heisman Trophy.
Well, yeah, I'm voting today.
It wasn't just a good starter. It was a difference maker that was out with an injury. And because they put that clause in there about we do have the right to consider the loss of a key player, let's face it, that quarterback was the most valuable player on that football team, and they were without him.
Yeah, I mean, he'd look good, really good in an Iowa uniform. Okay, now we'll get back to the Hawks. And when I think Michigan's now playing Alabama, I think Alabama's going to win because, like I said, I just was not impressed with Michigan's offense, and that's Iowa's defense. I get it. But if Michigan's an elite team, Don, they rarely had any success moving the ball. Their 2 touchdown drives were 5 and 6 yards. I mean, their offense didn't do anything.
Absolutely right. And let's face it, it is very difficult to bottle up Blake Corum and number 7. I can't think of his name
Donovan
right
Edwards.
now, but
Donovan Edwards.
Those are way above average running backs.
Yes.
And yet we frustrated them all night long. I don't know what their final averages were, but not much more than 2 yards a carry.
Oh, yeah, it was right in there. Yeah,
2.5 maybe. And for that matter, we did a good job of stymieing their passing game.
Yes.
I don't know. I haven't checked the individual stats, but I have reason to believe they probably didn't have a single explosive play all night.
They didn't. I mean, Iowa's longest play was 19 yards. Don, they had 213 total yards. That's all they had.
Yeah, and that's exactly where outstanding zone principles, where you have 11 defenders with their eyes on the ball.
Yep.
All 11 of them understand leverage on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
They continually sandwich the ball carrier between themselves and another player, and you don't give a guy a two-way go, as we say.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a tackler in the open field, and the back has a chance to break inside or out, then obviously he's more difficult to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
But if you understand you're supposed to have outside leverage and you do have it, then invariably you're sending him back toward your help. And that happened continually, and again, it just was a masterful performance on how to prevent big plays.
Yeah, what would Bill Brazier think of this defense?
He would love it because he and Phil Parker have a lot in common. They understand how to play great defense.
And a lot of it's leverage, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you still have to have good tackling principles, of course. You still have to have your eyes up and club your arms and run through the ball carrier. and you have to rely on your teammates to help you too to get a difficult guy on the ground.
You know, the biggest take I'm going to take from the game, the play I will remember the most, and it's been all over Twitter. I've retweeted it and tweeted to that. Cohen Intringer, number 4, misses the initial tackle on that long punt return. Right. And, I mean, that's tough to do, man. You're isolating down there. Cooper makes it look easy, but even he's missed a few of those. But then the other key was that guy made the second tackler miss, and then he got through. But, Don, and I'm sure you've seen it. If you haven't, you need to follow. Did you see the effort that Intringer showed in getting back up, sprinting downfield, racing past multiple people, and pushing that guy out of it was that thing he was going to say, listen, it's my fault you're down here, you're not scoring. I was just blown away by his speed and his effort.
Well, I will admit, sitting there in the stadium, I was convinced he was going to score a touchdown.
I was too.
Was going to reel it in. And I'll tell you what it reminded me of. It reminded me of another bowl game we played in recent years. It was us against Mississippi State. And I don't recall who our defender was. Same kind of play. The guy broke down the field. It appeared he was going to score a touchdown. And our guy sold out, left his feet, barely clipped the guy's ankle. The guy goes down inside the 10, and then 4 plays later they have to kick a field goal.
Yeah,
or maybe they even
was that?
Maybe they even fell on down. They can't recall.
I remember the play. It's escaping me who it is.
Yeah, but the point is, you keep making plays until they run out of field, and you have the mindset. We're gonna stop them before they score a touchdown.
It was incredible.
Even though we didn't get it done on that particular drive, on that particular punt return, it was still a great example for how to play the game. You simply do not give up on the play, ever.
Yep, and impressive speed. And my favorite tweet in response was somebody said, "Good God, put him on offense." I saw that,
I will admit, I found myself thinking, you know what, maybe we'd be wise to give Weechin a few snaps on offense, too.
Yeah, I was impressed with Weechin. He's fast. He's explosive.
He is fast.
He looks every bit as fast as Cooper DeJean. He's not Cooper DeJean, but he looks like he might even be a little quicker and what have you. But I know Cooper is incredible, but Cooper does a lot of his with size and leverage and quickness and vision and all that. But Weechin was really impressive. But, okay, Don, let's get to the Iowa offense. 155 yards. What was it? 34 rushing yards on 25 carries. Yeah, Patterson's fumble was huge. Deacon's fumbles were big. Now, I will say Deacon's fumbles, unlike Jazian. Well, the defender made a good hit on Jazian's step, but you got to hang on to it.
Yeah.
Deacon's plays were good plays by Michigan's defense. The line protection broke down. Deacon has bad pocket awareness, if you ask me.
Yeah, he had to get the ball out faster.
And he had to get the ball out faster, but sometimes you got to give the defense credit. Okay, but this to me, even though it was Michigan, it was just not a step forward for the Iowa offense. It was another example of why Beth Getz made such a drastic move in season and what have you. Just your overall thoughts, though, of the offense going into this month now to prepare for a bowl game.
Well, I guess one of my disappointments, I think I made the comment last week, we have to be aggressive with our play calling to beat Michigan. And that simply means we cannot just throw stuff on the wall and hope it sticks. Mm-hmm. You know, it needs to be aggressive play calling, but it needs to be calculated aggressive play calling.
Sure.
You know, you just can't just go crazy with taking chances left and right, and that's going to blow up in your face too. We have to be smart about how we attack them from an aggressive play calling standpoint. And I actually, the first entry I had on my notes as I went to look at the replay of the game, plays that are actually designed to be big plays. And you've heard me say before, big plays typically against a good defense, they just don't accidentally happen.
Sure.
You have to make them happen. You have to engineer the play situation, the play call, to give you a chance to make a big play. And actually, at the end of the game, I identified 2 plays that were designed to try to make something big happen, and that's simply not enough. And I don't want to beat up on our coaches on offense, but you know how I feel.
Sure.
You know, I've always said you can't steal second with your foot on first. You know, you have to be aggressive with your mindset. But the caveat is aggressive but intelligent. Mm-hmm. You know, you still can't be stupid with how you attack another team. You got to try to protect yourself, in other words. And we had 2 plays that were designed to do that. I'll take you back to both of them. early in the game, we finally got good field position. I say early, middle of second quarter, whatever it was. The bad punt, the punt that backed up on Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden we start off on the plus 38. And on that drive, I believe that very first set of downs, we had 2nd and 2. You might remember that. I said to Lisa, I said, here's another waste down opportunity. And this time we did not run the ball. This time we went play action. And the simple name for the play would have been whatever the play action they called it. I don't know what the terminology is, but play action Y flag would have been the call. That was the guy that was running down the field, deep downfield.
Sure.
And that play, I think Deacon probably should have hung in there a little longer with the primary receiver. I can't recall who the tight end was, but obviously they were surprised that we threw the ball. At least they had a little surprise to it. In the end, Deacon didn't see any good opportunities to throw, and I'm not even suggesting they were. But I think he, at least on that play, had some time, and he ended up reluctantly throwing the ball off the field. You might remember that. It was a throwaway.
Oh, yeah, no, I remember.
Yep. Yeah, which gave us 3rd and 2, and the ill-fated 3rd and 2 was the turnover. It was a good call.
It was. I like the call.
Yes.
Yeah, Jazz, it was a good offensive call, and it was the correct call by the officials. The only negative that Deacon made on that play, he threw the ball to Jazz. That's fine. It was a naked. We faked left and rolled right, and Jazz was the primary receiver. Jazz in the flat. He threw it behind him.
Yes. Made him vulnerable.
It forced Jazz to rotate his hips back toward the inside, back toward where the ball was snapped. And what it did, it blinded his vision for a split second because he simply didn't see the defender. By the time he turned back downfield, the guy was on him.
That's a great point.
And most importantly, the helmet was on the ball.
Yes, a good play.
Jazz, it was a super play by the defense, and I think that might have been Samuel again, wasn't it?
I believe it was. It was Samuel. And
yeah, he made both those plays. And the ball came out, and they of course got on it, and that killed our drive. I do recall, because I think there's maybe only 3 minutes left in the half, something like that. The clock was getting pretty low, and I said to Lisa, I said, you know what, we don't need a touchdown. We want one, of course, but all we have to have is a field goal. Because if we have a field goal here, it'll be a one-score game again. It'll be a one-score game at the half. And even though the score says 10-3, in a crazy sort of way, we have some momentum going in at halftime because we've returned it to a one-score game. And incidentally, of course, getting off to a 10-0 hole, that was after 14 minutes of play. We weren't even done with the first quarter. We're down by 10.
Yeah, it didn't look good.
Against an exceptional defense. That's not good, of course, but we battled back. We had a chance to be down by 7 at the half. Or realistically, of course, we had a chance to be down by 3 at the half. Any kind of score on that drive would have been okay.
Sure.
Perfectly a touchdown, of course. But the ball comes out, and they fall on the ball, and now we're down 10-0, and they get to receive the second half kickoff. So we're in a pretty big hole at that point.
And Don, I thought you were gonna bring up the pass because I know you're big on quarterbacks have to make it as easy as they can for their receivers. And see, those are little passes that I think the casual fan doesn't even think about that. Oh, that's just a tempo drop. But that was a big play, though. Just that having to turn like that exposed him. And it was huge.
Yeah, it did. It did. And for that matter, I will say this. We had difficulty throwing the ball against man-free type. They played a lot of man coverage. And invariably, we tend to throw the ball behind the receiver. Now, here's what happened. There were other instances across the course of the game where our guys running with speed, of course, because that's what he has to do to separate from that defender. That defender's in a trail position at that point, chasing. But if you throw the ball behind the receiver, again, he has to open up his hips. He has to rotate back toward that trailing defender, which gives that trailing defender, of course, a chance to break up the ball, to break up the pass reception. And oftentimes it's just contact that we wish we didn't have to go through. It's a contested catch at that point. And the ball is more likely to come out, of course, if the receiver doesn't have time to put it away. We saw that several times. So I always explain to the quarterbacks and receivers, listen, if we're working against man coverage, here's how you defeat man coverage. You have to make sharp cuts. You have to accelerate out of that cut. And last but not least, wide receiver, you should expect the ball out in front of you. Don't be surprised if you have to leave your feet to the ball, because that's the safe place to put it, is out in front, not behind, not on the back shoulder, not on the backside hip, because those plays, if we're lucky, they're only broken up. Worse yet, the ball skips off the receiver's hand. It's up in the air, and now it's more likely to be intercepted, of course. So Deacon needs to understand the ball's got to go in front of those receivers that are trying to separate from man coverage. The ball cannot be thrown behind. There were way too many passes thrown slightly behind the receivers.
So, Don, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's all.
Okay.
We simply have to be aware of that, and I don't doubt that Deacon's aware of it, but he's not acutely aware of it, because if he was, he would have made an effort to keep the ball out in front of those receivers that were running fast if they could to separate from the defender.
Don, in no way am I suggesting one play would change this game, but I do think the overrule on the what they ruled a fumble that was one of the strangest sequences I've seen, because they blew that play dead. The Michigan they were given the football, but if you watch the play, basically the play was dead. The Michigan player picked up the football and handed it to the official because he thought it was dead. The ball was dead. They ended up getting the ball there, and if you watch it, I did think his arm was moving forward. I mean, and
the first one, yeah,
I did. How surprised were you that they overruled that and placed the ball where they did?
I was shocked that they overruled it, because, and you're right, even Joel Klatt, who is an excellent analyst, former quarterback, he said the ball is ever so slightly moving forward. I think he was correct with what he said. And then on top of all that, of course, you have whistles blowing. You have officials waving their arms across, back and forth to signify that it's a dead ball, right? That's what the official that was closest to the ball, that's what he ruled. For sure, you can see him waving his extended arms back and forth. And as you mentioned, the DB simply was retrieving the ball.
Yeah.
He didn't retrieve it like it was. Yeah, everybody said obvious incomplete pass. Or I don't know if they used the word obvious, but they said it was simply ruled an incomplete pass. And then the longer it goes, and I don't blame Kirk at all for being upset with all that. He had every right to be upset with all of that. The only comment I would make as it relates to Brian, and I always told my coaches this: listen, if we have an issue with a play with a rule interpretation or an action on the part of the officials, I don't want you to say a word, because they don't want to hear from you. Now, they understand they need to hear from me. I have a right to voice my displeasure with what they've done, but they don't want to hear from anybody else.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I don't want any of you to say a word. I'll represent you, and believe me, I'll make my point, just as Kirk does a great job of making his point. But the bottom line, as Hayden Fry used to say, don't get into a spraying contest with a skunk, because you're going to lose that. Well, Brian's upset. We all understand that Brian's upset. We're all upset. Yeah. But, officials do not appreciate being shown up. I know there were times when I was discussing a call with the officials, and if you could hear me, you could tell I was very, very irritated with what just happened. But at least from the seats, it appears we're just having a discussion. You can chew somebody out with what happened without demonstrating it by your actions. Your words need to speak more loudly than your gestures at that point.
That's well said.
And that's what Kirk does. Mm-hmm. Kirk, it appears, sure, he's upset with what happened, but he's not just going off the wall. He's not yelling and clearly, screaming words that your children shouldn't hear. So Brian has more difficulty controlling his emotions than Kirk. I guess that's kind of obvious because we've seen it before. Well,
and the other thing, Don, too, is I don't want to speak for fans, but a lot of the fans that have talked to me about Brian has, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I'll put Tom on the spot.
Okay.
Brian kind of has a sense of, entitlement's not, But I don't ever recall a Hawkeye assistant coach under Hayden Fry or anyone other than Brian doing this on the field. I think Brian is kind of considers himself different because he's the head coach's son. That's what fans have told me. That's got to be the only explanation, because try to think of another Hawkeye assistant coach that's ever done anything like that.
I can't. I've thought about that, and think back to the incident in
the press box. I was there. I watched. I heard. I was right there. Yeah. No other.
That's not acceptable.
And a lot of people back then said the only reason he's doing this is because he knows he can, because it's his, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot there, Don, but I think that's what a lot of fans feel, that, Brian's always kind of pictured himself being a little different because, hey, my dad runs the show here and I'm going to probably replace him and I'll do as I please. That's what I kind of thought of when I watched that. I'm saying to myself, no other Hawkeye assistant coach would do that. Now, I will say Kirk did try to calm him down. I mean, Kirk went out and grabbed him and said, hey, relax.
Right.
And a bunch of them did. I mean,
and Spencer did too.
Spencer did, Seth Wallace. Kirk seemed a little startled that Brian got that upset, but it was just the same Brian that erupted in the press box. It was the exact same thing. And I watched and heard that thing. And the language was amazing, even for football. But it just wasn't a good look. And that's, I think, part of what we're dealing with this interesting dynamic father-son. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. I think in general, I just think back to, of course, I'm old enough to, it wouldn't be surprising that children 40 years ago might be raised slightly different than children today. And, of course, Brian's been long out of his early years. But I think it's safe to say young people in general are maybe just more likely to show their true emotions than we were taught when we were kids,
Sure.
Back in the old days, children were seen and not heard so much. But I think that's changed over time, and that's not an indictment of Brian, certainly, or indictment of Kirk in terms of parenting. That's just young people in general are given more freedom to express
social
themselves
media
nowadays.
helps that too. Yeah.
Yeah, they're given more freedom to express themselves nowadays than we were 20 or 30 or 40 years ago.
And Brian does have a temper issue. Don't you think it's fair to say that? He's obviously got a temper issue. I was with him, though.
Right.
It was a terrible call. Now, somebody brought up, all it would have done is delay the inevitable. It would have given 50 yards of field position. Oh, you're right. More than likely, were they going to drive 95 yards? No.
Of course not.
Of course not. But still, it made it harder on the Iowa defense. And to me, 26-0 was not a fair score. To me, that game seemed like a 10-0 game for Michigan. As bad as Michigan's,
you're right.
As bad as Michigan's offense was, I thought the score was sort of misleading.
Well, that was the biggest mistake officiating wise in the game, certainly, and the key play in the game was the touchdown that made 17 points.
Yes.
Because now it's 3 scores, and now, good luck trying to catch up on a really good defense when you're down 17. So if we could have just held it at 10, and I'll even argue this. Even if we could have just held them to a field goal, it would have been 13. It's still a 2-score
Sure,
game.
yeah.
I made
Anything
the
can happen.
comment of the Yeah, I made the comment at the time. I said, we're not dead, but we have to hold them to a field goal. 13-0 is, we can overcome 13-0 because now we know what we need. And based on the fact that we're, getting late into the third quarter, we understand, we may have to bypass a field goal attempt here in the fourth quarter simply because we're down by 2 scores, by 2 touchdowns, I should say. And, that would have been a tough hill to climb, but certainly if it was 13-0, we absolutely still were in the game.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
The bottom line, I think, Captain Obvious here, but we did what we needed Michigan to do to have a chance to win the game. We needed them to turn the ball over, and they didn't, and
right.
we
and that's
did.
a good point. As good as the defense was,
yes,
they never got McCarthy down in the pocket and forced him to sack. Forced a sack. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's why I was quick to say one of the best defensive performances that I can ever remember.
Yeah, it was.
And the only negative is we didn't turn the ball over.
Yeah,
we didn't generate turnovers. And of course, poor Nick Jackson. That ball.
Yeah.
He's going to replay that the rest of his life. Incidentally, I don't know how far he would have gone on the return, but he would have gone for a while, I think. There weren't that many tacklers over on his part of the field where the ball was thrown. And if he would have come back down our sideline, and I'm sure he would have worked a little bit toward our sideline, from where he touched the ball. I think it's safe to say he might have had a 20 or 30-yard return. It might have worked out that way. At best, they would have tackled him after a 10-yard return, I think.
I mean, I do like that Brian has tried to get Caleb Brown the ball in situations where it's not requiring Deacon to make a tough throw into tight windows or whatever. But it's to the point now when they're running Caleb Brown on one of those reverse. Everyone in the press box knows they're either going to fake a handoff to him or give it to him. They call it like 3 or 4 times a game. And do you think that's fooling the defenses anymore? It just seems like the defense, all they did with Caleb Brown was just string the play out and just push him out of bounds. I mean, it just seems like that play's getting really predictable.
Well, the fly sweeps, Caleb is a dynamic runner. Of course,
he is.
That's one of the things we like about him. But the only problem I have with it is we seem to have a habit of running the ball into the boundary. The ball was even on the hash.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of field to defend. And as Carl Jackson used to famously say, Mr. B never misses a tackle. Mr. B would be Mr. Boundary.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And, so they just keep, they understand, you hear me talk about leverage on the ball. Well, if it's a fly sweep into the boundary, you keep inside leverage on the ball because you have the boundary to help you. So you just simply escort him off the field. You just funnel him off the field. And both Weechen and Brown, they're running at top speed, and it's not easy to change directions, especially when the tacklers have inside leverage on you. They're back toward the field of play, so you don't have any opportunity to run back against the grain.
So
they just maintain that leverage and just funnel you right off the field.
Yeah,
I think we gained 5 yards, maybe. I think it's second play of the game.
5 yards was their second longest run. Well, Sean Williams had the longest run of 6 yards.
Also, same principle, of course. We threw the ball naked in the boundary, and we pick up 5 because there's not any running room. There's just not enough room to run.
Yeah.
And we are right-handed with naked. Of course, we fake left, roll right almost all the time, simply because we have right-handed quarterbacks.
So, Donnie, do you know if either Caleb or Caden Weechen has the ability to throw the ball?
I do not know. Good question. We know this. Number 7 for Michigan has the capacity to throw the ball.
Yes.
We've seen him do it.
We sure have.
We've seen him do it more than once, right?
Yes.
We've not seen him do it several times. And I'm sure going forward, I'm trying to think. Michigan plays who is
Alabama. And then Texas, Washington.
That's right, Michigan, Alabama. In the Rose Bowl, right? That's an appropriate setting, at least. I'm happy that the Big Ten's represented in the Rose Bowl. But I think it's safe to say, I promise you that Nick Saban is going to be sure every defensive player, we know for sure that number 7 is more than capable of throwing a halfback pass, so don't fall for that. I don't know about Corum. Maybe Corum can't throw because I haven't seen him do it. But the point is you have your opponent well scouted. And I don't know if either one of those two guys you mentioned, well, we should find out. I mean, let's face it, I think with a little bit of practice, one of them can probably be more than adequate as a thrower. And you're right, off of a fly sweep or a reverse or some kind of wide play, it wouldn't be it might be logical that we would have a play where they could pull up and throw the ball down the field.
Well, you mentioned Caden Weechen earlier. To me, he's shown enough. I hope next year, assuming he's still on the team and whatever, I have no reason to believe why he wouldn't be, get him the ball in space. I mean, I've been told that he's one of the 2 or 3 fastest guys on the team. He's clearly shown that. He looks like he can make people miss. He's got some explosiveness. I'm impressed with him, Don. I wish they could figure out a way to get him the ball like as a slot receiver. Have him and Caleb Brown in the field at the same time.
Yeah, my recall is that we actually ran Weechen on a fly sweep or 2 way back in
Early,
game 1, game 2.
And people bitched why it wasn't Caleb Brown. I mean, I remember that, yes.
Yeah, and the reason is kind of obvious. Weechen is every bit as capable of advancing the ball with the fly sweep as Caleb is.
Without question. Yeah, no, he's
at that point in time, I guess they didn't have as much confidence in Caleb as they do now, obviously.
Sure.
But you're exactly right. Remember, I used to say this about Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone doesn't have as good a hands as some other players we have on our team, but if we can just get him the ball, even if it's thrown behind the line, that's okay. Just get him the ball and give him a chance to run after the catch, because he's certainly above average with his ability to do that. I bet if you look at at the Purdue stats this year, he might have had more than 1,000 all-purpose yards for Purdue. I wouldn't.
Oh, without question, he
surprised
returned
if he
kicks,
did.
and he did a ton of different stuff for Purdue.
Yeah. Because he was good enough to catch the ball out of the backfield, and of course he proved to be a more than capable runner. They had a good 1-2 punch at running back because I like the other guy too. He's a good back.
Devin Mockabee.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Wiggins can give you some of that as an offensive player. Absolutely. Officially, of course, he is an offensive player. He's according to the game program, he's a wide receiver.
Yeah, he's a wide receiver.
That's what he is.
Yeah. And to me, Kirk's offense at this stage is not going to change much. That's what I wrote about today. So they need to get more dynamic players that can make plays. And it's easy for me to say this, but I think they need to hit the portal hard for why. I don't think they need to hit. I mean, they did get Nick Jackson. I get that. But linemen and whatever, I like what they develop here. What they need to do, quarterbacks and wide receivers, they need to hit the portal hard for that stuff. They got to get playmakers that can make these plays look easier than what they are right now.
But if you're a quarterback,
why are you going to come here?
Why would you come
That's
here?
the catch-22. That's
Cade's here, and
you're going to have to spend some NIL money. You're going to have to. You could also convince him, Don. Couldn't you say, hey, you can help revamp this offense? We've got everything else here. There's ways to make Iowa attractive, even despite the fact that they are firing the coordinator. How hard is it going to be for Iowa to get dynamic receivers right now in the portal? Because let's face it, guys, that's what they need. Wouldn't you agree?
They got to get a quarterback, too.
Well, you got one, Cade McNamara.
Yes.
They're throwing all their eggs in his basket.
Well, you need game breakers. You need game breaker receiver because he's the guy that touches the ball every play.
Yes.
And you need game breakers at the skill positions, at least some of them. They don't all have to be game breakers, but certainly it helps if you have more than one or two. And then, of course, you just have to work to get them the ball. They get them the ball in space. I made this comment about Deacon against Michigan. I said Deacon doesn't have to go out there and make a bunch of great plays. He just has to be really good at making a lot of routine plays.
Routine plays, yes.
Yeah, let's just be a high percentage in getting the ball to the guys that have a good chance to do something with it after the catch. And Caleb Brown is a prime example of that.
Yep.
I'm sure you guys felt like I did. I was more than satisfied with Caleb Brown's effort and his execution during the game.
I thought he played hard, yeah.
Yeah, he played hard. I think, in general, when we threw him the ball, it was a productive play because he's above average after the catch. And I give credit to another guy that's above average after the catch, too. And that's Ostrenga.
Yeah, Addy Ostrenga played.
He's their next emerging tight end. It's clear. Yeah.
And just for the record too, I had a discussion with a guy. He said the great thing about Ostrenga, I believe he had 7 catches for 50 yards, and then he went on to say, he said, and 44 of those yards were yak yards.
Yeah.
And I said, don't be confused here. That does not mean he had 44 yards after contact. That is yards after catch. That's what that number is. I hate that they even have a category of yards after catch because it doesn't mean much. What means more to a coach is yards after contact. You know, we're talking about a guy fighting for yardage that he wasn't supposed to make on that play simply because he should have been tackled at that point. And you hear the NFL, if they talk about yak yardage, they're not talking about yards after catch. They're talking about yards after contact. There's a difference. So somebody was arguing that Ostrenga had 44 yards after contact. That's not true. He had 44 yards after the catch.
Yes, big difference.
He caught the ball and ran, but he didn't break tackles to gain an extra 44 yards. That's my point.
Okay, now, one of the things I wrote today is, and I've wondered about this, I mean, there's this perception that, Iowa, they recruit great tight ends and they build them. Most of the tight ends that Iowa's had success with are less recruited than some of the receivers. I mean, Sam Laporta had one offer from Iowa. They've had receivers have way more offers come in here, but they're not developing receivers like they are tight ends. Is that because of the system they run? It's conservative and methodical, and it's easier to throw to receivers or to tight ends than it is receivers. I mean, what are the reasons why receivers are? Because it's not like they're recruiting better tight ends. Hell, they're converting players from different. Why are tight ends developing more here than wide receivers and quarterbacks right now? Would you say, Don?
Well, I think if you want to, and first off, let's establish this. We all know, and Kirk said it many times, we are a developmental football program.
Sure.
We're not going to live and die by recruiting 5-star recruits and getting them in here. What has been so key to our success over all these 45 years is we develop our players well. Mm-hmm. That's what coaching is developing your players. And it helps, of course, to recruit a guy that's got great character, that is absolutely driven to be as good as he can be. That's the way Marv Cook was. Is it any surprise I'm able to say Marv Cook was an easy guy to coach?
Sure.
Because Marv Cook was never satisfied with how he played. Tim Dwight was the same way. I'm talking about another player in another position. So the challenge for Coach Copeland is to develop those receivers. And that starts with recruiting the right ones, the ones that are driven to be great players. Be careful if a guy's some kind of prima donna that thinks he's God's gift of football, because he probably doesn't have the right mentality. He's going to always think that it's somebody else's fault that we're not moving the ball better. It's not his fault. He's not going to maybe take ownership like he should. And of course, every player should ask, am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? If I'm part of the problem, then I have to change. I have to find a way to develop my skills so that I'm a better player. I have to play with more intelligence. I have to play with consistently great effort. I have to take advantage of every strength and conditioning workout I go through, because I'm trying to develop more explosion and become a better receiver, to be able to pull through an arm tackle. So that's on Kelton to be able to develop those guys. But it all gets down to even the smallest detail about how to be a great receiver. A simple example, when you're working against man coverage, you try to force the man defender to turn his hips away from where you want to go. And you're continually trying to figure out ways to break to his backside to separate from him. And that, like you've already heard me say, once you run that route, when you put your foot in the ground, let's imagine it's an in route or a drive route across the field. Now, when you put your foot in the ground, you accelerate out of that cut, and you expect the ball out in front of you, and you do not drift down the field. And when I say drift, you know what I mean. If you're running a route if you're making your break and you're supposed to be, let's say you're running a route at 12-yard depth. Well, clearly what you can't afford to do versus man coverage is roll through that route and end up at 16-yard depth, because you didn't define the route. It's got to be a sharp cut. You have to feel like you're actually working a little bit back toward the line of scrimmage, which simply means you're working parallel to the line of scrimmage. And when you do that, that defender has no choice but to play through your backside. He cannot undercut you. You follow me there?
Yes. Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a different route. Against zone coverage, your job is to find the soft spot in the zone. It's not critical at all that you sharply define your breaks. But against man coverage, it is, because that's being a good man route runner. Mm-hmm. And when you come out of that break, that DB's on my backside hip, but I'm not overly concerned about it, because I'm not going to give him a chance to undercut me. And I fully expect that the ball's going to be out in front, because to throw it behind me would be to give him a chance to either intercept or break it up. That's just fundamentally good football, routes versus man. That's what you have to do. That's what the good teams do. And the other thing we got to do a better job of is we got to come up with more ways to defeat man coverage. What you saw Saturday night is a lot of what we do. We threw a lot of flat routes to an inside receiver. I'm talking about he's breaking outside at 5 yards or 6 yards depth. And if we can throw and catch that, that's a productive play. But it's hard to run out after the catch, because the defender's right there to tackle you. Maybe we complete it, maybe not, and sometimes we throw it behind the receiver. Another example is slant routes. Here's a prime example from the Ohio State game. You saw the Ohio State-Michigan game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Remember that slant that was intercepted early in the game?
Yeah.
Well, the amazing thing, that was Harrison. You got to blame Harrison on that play.
Yeah.
Because good receivers understand this. If the guy's got inside leverage on me and he's manned up on me, I don't care what I do. If I have to sharpen that cut and run it a little flatter than what I wanted to on that slant route, that's what I got to do, because I'm not going to give up position toward the ball. Well, Harrison gave it up. He was less than aggressive running that route. And the Michigan defender, who fully expected a slant route, he beat him to the ball. Harrison kind of kind of slowed up and gave way to the other guy. You just got to flatten that route out a little bit and keep that guy on your backside.
And now that quarterback is in the portal.
Make him play through you.
That quarterback.
And Harrison might be the most deserving skill player in college football this year, and yet he still blew it on that play.
He did.
And I'm sure the coach is saying, I can't believe, and the coach should feel like he just fails, because unless your player does it the way it's supposed to be done, then that's still on you. You can blame the player if you want, but ultimately you should blame yourself too, because you're the one that allowed it to happen. You got to get it corrected, and you should be able to correct that in practice, not during a game.
And Don,
after a game.
That quarterback is Kyle McCord has entered the transfer portal today. Becomes an active player. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be. Iowa's already had one. Brendan D. Fernandez, the defensive back from Michigan, announced that he was going to enter the portal yesterday, and it goes into effect today. And I'm sure there'll be others. I mean, Iowa's no different. There could be some that are happening right now. I haven't checked my phone for the last 10 minutes, but it's going to be crazy these next couple of days and weeks with the transfer portal. But back to this though, how much do you think Kirk's offense caters more to tight ends than wide receivers? The way they approach, to me, it seems like they always, like you said, they always take a conservative approach. And to me, it's more conservative throwing to tight ends to wide receivers downfield in tighter windows. Is that any truth to that, or am I wrong there?
Well, there are man beaters that involve wide receivers getting the ball too.
Mm-hmm.
You hear people on Sunday at the NFL games talk about man beaters, talk about rub routes, pick passes, whatever you want to call them. So you got to run stuff like that you've heard me say before. You got to scare that team out of man coverage. If they feel like they can play man coverage all day and load the box, then why wouldn't they? You got to be able to defeat it. You got to be able to at least discourage them from playing it. Make them think twice about playing that against you, because let's face it, one of the negatives about man coverage, obviously, if you're beaten on a particular pass play, well, you're not going to get a lot of help out of your teammates because they're all covering their guys.
Yeah.
And the beauty of attacking man coverage, you only need to find one good matchup. You don't have to have five. Let's face it, you need to engineer your formation so that you develop the best possible matchup. And a prime example of that would be, remember a year ago versus Nebraska. Nebraska did a good job of attacking our inexperienced corners.
They did. They jumped right on it when poor TJ got in there.
Yeah, they jumped right on it. And here's another example. I did chart this over the course of the game. You're probably not surprised to hear this. You just don't know what the numbers are. It was obvious to me early on. They've made the decision, same decision other people have made here lately. The weaker of the two corners is Deshaun. That's how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
Right or wrong, that's how they feel. I charted this, and I might have overlooked one, but I know as a bare minimum, they attacked Deshaun late 8 different times, and they were 8 for 8. They caught the ball, and you might say, well, it wasn't for a lot of yards. No, but it was for 2 first downs.
Sure.
Yeah.
In so many cases. So it gave them a new set of downs. They threw 8 times at number 8, and they completed all 8 of them. And I didn't bother to keep track of the yardage. To Deshaun's credit, none of them were for big gainers. But again, all they were looking for is a new set of downs. Matter of fact, here's one that we should talk about. Remember this one, opening drive. They have 4th and 2, and they false start, right?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Uh-huh.
Now it's 4th and 7, and I'm thinking, what is Harbaugh doing? Because I knew the play figure was good, but they passed up. It would have been a 54-yard attempt. Now, that's at the end of his range, but the way that guy kicked all day long, and he was second team all-conference.
He was my MVP for the game. That's who I voted for.
Ahead of our guy, yeah. I mean, I fully expected if he would have kicked it, he would have made it. I know they commented that in pregame he was good from 56.
Oh, he was. I was watching him.
I heard Joe Klatt say that. So I fully expected a field goal attempt, and I took it this way. That's almost disrespectful that they're going for it, because they think they can just automatically get 7 yards against us. Well, guess what?
They did.
They did.
10.
Yeah.
And what did they do? They simply isolated on Deshaun. Threw the ball underneath him for a first down. And the irony there, because you heard me say about us going for it on 4th and 1 at midfield, the only problem when we roll the dice and go for it on 4th and 1, even if we convert, can you promise me we won't have to punt in 4 more plays? Right?
Sure.
because that's the fans always want you to go for it on 4th and 1. Well, that sounds good if you can guarantee that conversion on 4th and 1 is going to produce a touchdown. But what if we just have to punt in 4 more plays? That was a risk we shouldn't have taken. So in general, I agree with Kirk on all those decisions about punting the ball away. Of course, if it's early in the game at all, punt it away and let's play field position. So anyway, 4th and 7, they convert. They end up having to kick a 35-yard field goal, but it gets them started. And what was most important, we're only down 3-0, but here's the stat that kind of the hidden stat. At that point in the game, we had snapped the ball 3 times on offense and then punted. They snapped the ball 13 times on that first drive.
Don, I can't recall a game where there were more 6- and 7-yard down and outs. But that was basically what Michigan kept doing. I mean, they did it a little better than Iowa, but they didn't do it. I mean, like you said, they were underneath routes. But both teams just run those side. Michigan runs a ton of routes where they complete the ball, and the receiver basically you just push the receiver out of bounds. I just was not impressed with Michigan's offense. So before we wrap this up, I want to go into the playoff. Iowa plays Tennessee. Do you know much about them? This was not a good season. I mean, Tennessee had a better year last year. That Josh Heupel was the hero and the savior of Tennessee football. Now they've come back down to earth a little bit. What are they, 8-4?
8-4, yep.
And your thoughts.
I don't know much about it. My perception is, maybe it's more based on last year than this year, my perception is you'd probably give them a better grade on offense than defense.
I haven't really started looking closely yet. They are athletic. Of course they're athletic. And, it's going to be they're going to have more speed than Iowa. Is it fair? Do you think it's fair to say?
They've scored a lot of points against the lesser teams that they play, but when they got up against Georgia and Alabama, they didn't fire a shot.
They didn't fire a shot, no.
Yeah. Well, the problem they're going to have against us, of course, is we do not give up big plays.
Exactly.
So you're going to have to sustain drives, and to do that, of course, in general, you need to be able to run the ball and stay ahead of the chains, and it's hard to do that against a team that also has a good rush defense, as we do. So I think the only question, and let's go back to our game against Michigan. You've always heard me say 3 games in 1. What I expected is that the defense certainly had a chance to win the day, win the night, I should say. And I think I'd certainly give us an edge, our defense versus Michigan's offense. In my mind, we actually won that matchup.
Yeah.
And the only negative is that we didn't force turnovers. But the surprise is we lost the kicking game. For 2 reasons. They were 4 for 4 on field goals, one of which was 50 yards, as I recall, and of course the punt return. So we lost 2 matchups, and I'd say we had a narrow win, our defense versus their offense, and that's simply not enough, of course, because we got convincingly beaten with their defense versus our offense. And it wasn't just the minimal yards. It was the fact, of course, that they turned the ball over.
Yeah.
That they forced us to turn the ball over, I should say. And then, of course, we lost the matchup in the kicking game, too. Incidentally, I didn't realize their punter was as good as he is.
He's good.
I know Torrey statistically had a good game, but in Torrey's mind, that was an off game. People would say, well, he had a 67-yard punt.
Well, he didn't get the rolls that he normally gets.
Yeah, that ball was on the ground for maybe 20.
On that one, he did
yards.
get the roll. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and there were other punts that he missed, and we got some benefit of the roll yardage there too. And let's face it, the 87-yard punt return, I would have loved for it to have, instead of being fielded on I can't remember where it was fielded now, on the 5 or something, 7. I would have loved for him to have to fair catch it out on the 15-yard line without a return. So, and I'm not blaming Torrey for the return, because our cover guys, our stingers as we call them, the guys that was
Intringer and John Nestor. They were
and right now, of course, we're missing out on our top 2 guys. You might think back over the course of the season. Typically, it was number 3 and number 2. It was T.J. Hall, who did a good job on that, and of course Cooper, who did a great job on forcing fair catches, or if they dare to field it, then tackling them immediately too. We didn't get that with number 4, and I don't know who the other stinger was.
Number 7, John Nestor.
Yeah, and those guys, don't get me wrong, they've done a good job, in the absence of our other two. But in this case, they missed with their helmet on the right side. They missed with their helmet outside, but they gave him a chance to run up the field and, of course, pick his way. And I did think with a little bit of luck, we might have gotten a flag there for a push in the back.
Yes.
Torrey Taylor maybe got nudged in the back a little bit on that play. But the bottom line, of course, it was a well-blocked return. I do recall, too, talking again about our explosive punt returner, about Weegan, one of those flags for sure was a good call. The first one was a correct call for a push in the back. And I can't remember who the foul was on, but doesn't matter, I guess. I believe it was number 4 again, wasn't it?
That I can't recall.
Yeah.
I think, yes,
anyway,
it was, because I do remember him coming off the field and having a discussion with LeVar Woods. It wasn't heated or anything, but I think he was just using that as a talking point.
That was a good call.
Yeah.
Here it is. Yeah. Pushing back. Excellent punt return by Weechen, negated by pushing the back by number 4 and Trainer. Correct call. Now, the next one, I never did see a push on the next one. They said it was on number 95, I think they said. Who is 95?
It's Aaron Graves.
Yeah.
That's right, it's Aaron Graves. But here's my point. At least off the TV copy, I slowed it down. I could not find any push on the part of anyone. And I don't even know where 95 was. To my knowledge, he was not anywhere near the ball. But here we are with another, what you might call a phantom foul. You know, I didn't see it. And incidentally, and let's face it, these guys that broadcast a game, they're really good at going back and showing you video of the fact that this was a foul, you know, and they didn't pull up anything on that play. Now, maybe they didn't have time to locate it and show it, but I was waiting for the replay to see the push in the back, and they never showed it. So it makes me wonder if there ever was a push.
Now, there was a blatant roughing the passer call that they did not call on Deacon. I mean, it was – I could not believe they didn't call this based on some of the calls.
Yeah.
But, again, the officials were not the reason Iowa lost this game.
They didn't help.
But they didn't help. But they were not the reason Iowa lost this game. But Don, I want to, before we wrap up the playoffs, 4 teams. Who's your pick? What's your gut feeling?
Well, I'm honestly, I'm impressed with Washington. It's going to be Washington, Texas, huh?
Yes.
I haven't seen as much of Texas as I have Washington. Incidentally, shout out to Bill Inge, our old player,
That's right.
the defensive coordinator at Washington.
He's at Washington. Yep.
And Billy would say, I don't know if you should give me credit for that or not, because let's face it, Washington outscores people.
They do.
More often than not.
They do.
Their defense is not great. That's not because Bill Inge is not a great coach, because he is a great coach. But, you know, you do the best you can with what you have. And I think they're a little better suited personnel-wise on offense than defense.
Without question.
Yeah, so my concern, I like Washington. I mean, anybody that can beat Oregon twice is pretty darn good. They've been able to stay unbeaten throughout the season. And, of course, there's some other good teams in the Pac-12 also that we're very familiar with. But I just don't, to me, to go into the playoffs realizing you have to outscore people, that's not good. Ideally you need to have a complementary ball where you're good on both sides of the ball. So I don't know. I think it's going to be one of the more anticipated semifinal games ever, these 2 games that we can look forward to. But I'm not entirely sold on Michigan.
I'm not either.
Simply because, and I'll be honest with you too, just to give you an idea of how in depth I've looked at Michigan, and we don't need to discuss the specific analytics, but just so you're aware, went back way beyond just 9 conference games this year. I started off doing that, our 9 games and their 9 games, to zero in on which parameters are most important to winning. And I have no doubt in my mind the 4 that we identified as most important, in fact, still are the most important if it involves a game against Michigan. And incidentally, Michigan and Iowa have very similar philosophies with how to play.
Yes.
They're simply doing it with a little better players on offense than we are.
I think that's fair to say.
Exactly.
And you might argue that they're being better coached on offense than our guys too. I don't want to make that statement. I simply think they have better players athletically than we do right now.
Yeah,
clearly.
Yeah. So anyway, the bottom line, I went back and looked at last year. Let's talk about it a little bit. I'll even talk about what one of those parameters was, because it won't surprise you what what one of them is. One of them is turnover margin. And that's what's amazing about Michigan. Michigan is really good in protecting the ball, incredibly good.
Yes,
they hardly ever turn it over. So I went back. I thought, okay, that's fine. Nobody's beaten them on turnovers this year and won the game. A couple of the non-conference opponents actually beat them on turnovers back in September. Well, it didn't matter, of course, because they were so dominant in other areas that they were only, don't get me wrong, Michigan was only -1 in those games. But for the record, I think it was Bowling Green and Western Michigan, I believe. They both beat them. Both those teams were +1 versus Michigan on turnovers. Didn't matter. They overcame it anyway. But going back and looking at last season, you recall, of course, they lost to TCU. TCU, they were only even in that game on turnovers. But guess what? 2 of TCU's interceptions were pick sixes.
Yeah.
So is it any wonder that TCU beat them? TCU also outrushed them. Now, we weren't going to outrush Michigan, but as Kirk and I discussed, we don't have to outrush Michigan just so the numbers are competitive. That'll be good enough. Let me give you another example of why I'd say that's good enough. A year ago against Illinois in Ann Arbor, Illinois was only +1 on turnovers, but still they won on turnovers, not by much, I'll admit, the smallest possible margin.
Mm-hmm.
But Illinois also was only outrushed by 20 yards in that game. Illinois was competitive on field position, and Illinois had a 17-10 lead to go into the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter was won by Michigan 9-0, and that left Michigan with a hard-earned 19-17 win against Illinois last year. So the point in bringing up last year's game against Illinois, that formula is going to hold, because last year Illinois did not outrush Michigan, but they were competitive. They were +1 on turnovers. They were competitive on field position. And if they would have been able to just be competitive in the fourth quarter instead of losing 9-0, if they would have only lost 7-3, let's say, they would have protected that lead they had to start the fourth, and they would have beaten Michigan. So it is doable. I got in trouble with Michigan fans during the week because I did a podcast, and I simply made the statement, I know what the parameters are that are most important to winning. The bad news for Iowa fans, Michigan's really good at all 4 of these parameters. But the good news for Iowa fans, I got news for Michigan. We're pretty good in those same 4 areas, too. So if we can win even 2 of those 4 parameters, we'll win the game. Well, we didn't. We lost on field position, clearly, with that 87-yard punt return. That flipped the field. And, of course, one of those, a correct strip sack of Deacon late in the game. That was the drive that started on the 15-yard line. And, of course, the bad call was a turnover that gave them, how about this for touchdown drives, 5 yards and 6 yards. That was their touchdown drive.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan entered the game. They've scored 17. They've scored on 17 of 23 turnovers they had forced this year, 14 touchdowns. And then they had given up 9 points, 3 field goals on 7 turnovers. They've clearly dominated that stat. They did it again on Saturday, and on 2 of them, they earned those turnovers by sacking the Iowa quarterback. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I think Alabama's going to win, just because I don't have much faith in Michigan's offense against what I think's enough. I don't know if Alabama's defense is any better than Iowa's, but it's good. I mean, and it's so we'll see. I mean, Tom, we're going to take a couple Mondays off. When will we do the next? Since there's nothing next week, we're gonna want to do one before going into the bowl game.
I would like to.
So Don, I'll keep in touch. We'll do this in a couple more weeks. We'll maybe take a couple Mondays off, but as we get closer to the Iowa bowl game, closer to the playoffs, we'll start getting this up again. Does that work for you?
Yeah, by that time we'll know a lot about Tennessee.
Yes, we will
discuss Tennessee at some length. Just one other comment about looking back at Michigan, just to confirm with how to play Michigan. We played Michigan the right way. The only thing we failed to do is generate turnovers.
Yep.
And now let me take you back to 2021, and that brings up. This is going to tie into that discussion about spying, about Spygate, if you will. If you go back to 2021, Michigan lost 2 games that year, as I recall. I'm trying to think of. I know who it was. They actually lost to Michigan State in the regular season, 37-33, back in 2021. Their second loss, you might remember, because it was to the national champs. It was to Georgia. But in that Georgia game, Georgia was +3 on turnovers. If you're +3 on turnovers and you do those other things well, you're going to win every time.
Yep.
So the message to the coaches was, we certainly don't have to be +3. That's wishful that we're going to be +3 against Michigan. And +1 might be enough. It was almost enough for Illinois to win a year ago. +2, I think, would be enough, because no one else in the past 3 years has even been +2. The only team to be +3 was Georgia. No one has been +2 in 3 years. Now, here's the other thing I'll leave you with to really give you something to think about. Let's go back to 2021 for Michigan, because this is how it hit me. There were 5 games that year that Michigan was in danger of losing. 2 of them they did lose. You already heard me talk about Michigan State and Georgia. But there were 3 other games that were won by 3 points, 4 points, and 7 points. And I can't remember all 3 of them right now. One of them was at Nebraska. I think that was 32-29. I can't remember the other 2, but they were games that clearly could have been lost. So my point is, 5 out of, I believe they played 14. Was it 13 games or 14? 13, I think. I think Georgia was a first-round loss. 5 of those 13 games were either lost or might have been lost, could have been lost. So here's my point. They go from being in danger of losing 5 in 2021 to hardly being in danger of losing it all in 22 and 23. And the thing I wondered about is, does that have anything to do with scouting, with Spygate? I don't know, but it does make you wonder. You know, they were vulnerable in 2021, and all of a sudden, in 22 and 23, they don't even appear to be vulnerable.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, maybe it's simply because they've done a great job of coaching and playing, but I can't help but wonder, is it tied at all into scouting your opponent? I don't know.
Well,
but it bothers me to even have to think about that. And you'll notice the announcers are not hardly even going to mention the scouting issue. They don't call it spying, of course, because that sounds too provocative. They call it opponent scouting.
Well, we'll leave it as a mystery. It can maybe a potential conspiracy. We'll let our listeners, they can ponder that. But no, that is it a coincidence or is it connected? I don't know. We'll probably never know the answer for sure, but it's interesting. And Donnie, as usual, great stuff. And we'll take a couple Mondays off, but we'll get back. And as we get closer, we'll also know more transfer portal because, like I said, there's going to be a lot of news over these next couple of weeks, and we'll look forward to doing it again here in a couple of weeks.
That sounds good. Well, the one thing you can count on out of our guys, I don't know that Tennessee is going to assign as much importance to this bowl game as we do, but you know that we're going to assign great importance to it because our players simply, I put our character and our pride up against anyone that is in college football. These guys, it may not sound like a big bowl game to a lot of people that follow college football, but to those guys wearing black and gold, I promise you it means the world to them.
Okay.
And I think that gives us maybe a slight advantage over Tennessee because I simply don't know that Tennessee can match our character and our pride and our workmanlike attitude that we demonstrate every time we practice football.
Okay, well, we're going to need it. Thank you, Donnie.
Thanks, Donnie. Great stuff as usual. Thanks.
You bet, guys. Take care.
This pride thing.
We will be right back.
It's overrated with this station. We'll be back.
From the Harty and Stalker Studios in the heart of the Hawkeye Nation, this is the mighty 1630 KCJJ, Iowa City.
Harty and Stalker Jewelers, making memories, making moments.
1-800-800-ROSE. 1-800-800-ROSE. Your FTD florist is the only number you need to know to send flowers anywhere in the country or Canada from anywhere in the country. 1-800-800-ROSE. It's so easy. Just remember one number. 1-800-800-ROSE. Your FTD florist. 1-800-800-ROSE. Remember,
For a gift that your loved one will treasure for a lifetime, find it at our family-owned jewelry store in Iowa City, Harty and Stocker Jewelers.
We can show you diamond engagement rings, colored stones, fashion jewelry, and watches.
Our jewelers are on site, so we can design jewelry for that special person in your life.
We are Harty and Stocker, serving Iowa City and the surrounding area for 3 generations.
Harty and Stocker Jewelers, downtown Iowa City, and HartyandStockerJewelers.com. Ask for Willa, Terry, Tim, or Kate. One of us is always there.
Don't wait for an emergency to get a backup for your car keys. Unlike the olden days, car keys have gotten extremely complex. Mike's eKeys for Cars can generate the most technically advanced automotive keys that are on the market today. For spares and lost keys, Mike's eKeys for Cars can produce most conventional transponder, high security, and remote head keys. Mike's eKeys for Cars will keep you on the road. Call 319-330-9185 and schedule an appointment today. Don't wait until it's too late. Call 319-330-9185 today.
Earning $100 in free play at Wild Rose Casino and Hotel is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Sign up to be a part of Club Wild, and you could earn up to $50 in free play on your first visit. But it doesn't stop there. You could earn an additional $25 in free play when you come back a second and third time. When we say you'd rather be here, we mean it. Join Club Wild today, and you could earn up to $100 in free play. See Club Wild for details.
Must be 21 or older. If you or someone you know needs gambling treatment, call 1-800-BETS-OFF.
Hi, this is Jill Sterner with Sterner Taxidermy in Lone Tree. It's hunting season again, and I'm inviting all of you hunters to follow us on our Facebook page. You can view Dirk's award-winning artistry, his workmanship that he completes with each individual piece. We can be reached at 319-330-1774. Again, 319-330-1774.
Are you tired of living in a home that doesn't quite meet your needs? Then it's time to call the experts at Streets Maintenance. Their team of skilled professionals specializes in renovations and remodeling, transforming your home into the space you've always dreamed of. From kitchen and bath remodels to complete home renovations, no job is too big or too small. Streets Maintenance will work with you every step of the way to ensure your vision becomes a reality. So don't wait any longer. Call Streets Maintenance to schedule your consultation at 400-4483. Let's start building your dream home today.
Once upon a time in the land of the Hawkeyes, a business grew. A business that would become synonymous with real estate. Hi, I'm Steve Anderson of Hawkeye Title and Settlement. When you're buying or selling your home, you'll need title and settlement services. Consider the Hawkeye Title and Settlement team. Give us a call at 351-8600. Hawkeye Title and Settlement, the team you love, the people you trust.
It's that wonderful holiday time of the year. Moments of eating too much, spending time with family, in some cases maybe trying to avoid family. However you choose to celebrate, the Diamond Dental team of Dr. Forbes, Kate, Michelle, Michaela, and Kim would like to wish everyone a happy, healthy, and safe holiday. Here's hoping you enjoy every minute of this joyous time of the year. Rest assured, Diamond Dental is here, providing superior care for your entire family during the holiday season and all year long.
The Sanctuary Pub in downtown Iowa City has been a fixture since 1972 and still features a classic menu, such as the classic shepherd's pie, handcrafted pizzas, and craft beers and cocktails. The Sanctuary Pub is known for its warm and cozy atmosphere. That's the perfect place to spend time with family and friends while enjoying live music. Support great local food with socially distanced dine-in, carry-out, and delivery through Chomp Delivery. The Sanctuary Pub is located at 405 South Gilbert Street. Full menu options are online at sanctuarypub.com. Come experience the Sanctuary Pub. You won't ever want to leave.
From your friends at the Midtown Family Restaurants comes a sincere holiday wish. May happiness brighten your holidays and remain with you throughout the new year. Warmest season's greetings from the Midtown Family Restaurant.
GT Carr, owner of Supple's Building and Remodeling, has been offering unmatched service and quality for over 25 years. The trained professionals at Supple's Building and Remodeling will install and guarantee the products used in any job, no matter how big or small. They also stand behind their work and offer no-nonsense, exceptional customer service from design to completion and beyond. Whether it's a simple window replacement or a major house addition, you'll have the confidence that Supple's Building and Remodeling is committed to quality. Visit suples.net or call them today at 319-337-2246.
Been waiting all year long for year-end savings? The wait is over. This is Patrick Eads, owner of Geary Ford in Iowa City. Get a new 2023 Ford F-150 Super Crew XLT up to $6,500 off MSRP plus 1.9% financing. Get a new 2023 Ford Escape up to $3,000 off MSRP plus 0.9 financing. Get a new 2024 Ford Edge up to $4,000 off MSRP plus 0% financing. Hurry in or shop online at DearyFord.com.
The Oxyokin Sunday Brunch is back. Still offering so many choices of fresh entrees, homemade salads, waffles, egg choices, pastries, 3 tiers of desserts, and much more. Serve 9 until 1. Such a great value. See you this Sunday. Oxyokin, where you'll always leave happy.
The Oxyokin.
Ho, ho, ho. It's a holiday tradition. KCJJ's Santa Store, a KCJJ radio auction, goods, merchandise, services, and lots of delicious food. And it all goes on the block with big savings this Friday morning, beginning at 6. And remember, KCJJ auction certificates make great stocking stuffers. Check out a list of items at the KCJJ app or at 1630 kcjj.com.
Here is your KCJJ forecast today. It is going to be cloudy. We'll get to around 41 for a high this afternoon with wind out of the west becoming south at 5 to 15. We are keeping an eye on a system that could bring a few light rain and or snow showers late this afternoon into this evening. Our low tonight 30, tomorrow mostly cloudy 40, Wednesday 42 by the time we roll into Thursday, Friday. Highs are going to be back in the mid to upper 50s. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable on the mighty 1630 KCJJ. Outside now it's 33.
Maybe people should stay out of there when they're downloading their stuff.
Stay out of where?
It froze.
Huh?
They were in, somebody, probably our weather people were in our system.
I see. I don't see.
Yeah. No, you don't.
No, I don't.
So anyway.
There you have it.
How you doing, Suter?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Hog Fanatic, we're back.
We are back. We are back. Good talking to Donnie, as always.
Yeah.
He always has good insights.
I knows his stuff.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. He does. So, Mr. Harty.
What?
Iowa versus Purdue, 6 o'clock tonight.
All over it.
What do you
I'm
think?
looking forward to it. Well, I think Purdue's probably going to win. I don't think losing at Northwestern helps Iowa.
I don't either.
I think that makes Purdue angry and locked in more. But I'm also one of these guys who always says, I think Purdue would be locked in anyway, but I think they may play with maybe a little more sense of urgency because they don't want to start 0-2.
No.
And I think I would have liked Iowa's chances of pulling off an upset a little more had Purdue won, but I just think Purdue's a better team. They're playing at home. They've won 5 in a row against Iowa at Mackey. I just think they're going to win.
Yeah, I
agree. The question is, Iowa has had a pattern over their fall behind early, but then make a run and make it competitive down the stretch. I could see that happening, but I see Purdue winning by 7 to 12 points.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Iowa better be ready to play transition defense. They have to defend the 3. I just don't think Purdue, Braden Smith's averaging 12-9 and leads the league, I think, with 56 assists. And what's the other name? The lawyer kid that plays, is it
Foster?
Foster? I think, is it Fletcher or Foster? I think one of them is named Foster, the other's Fletcher, and I think this is Fletcher, I think. And he's good, too, but they're not dynamic athletes and whatever. But if you leave them open from three, they can make threes. Iowa's going to have to be really good with its transition help and three-point defense to have a chance. And then, of course, Edey's going to get his.
Yeah.
Edey's going to get his if you double him, whatever. But let's say Edey, what do you have against Northwestern? 35?
I think.
And they lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's ways to beat Purdue even with Edey being dominant. So it will be interesting. Are you real confident Iowa's going to win?
No.
But I don't think they're going to get run off the floor.
I'm never confident at Becky.
No, there's not a lot of reason to be. But I don't think I don't think it's going to be 90-60.
No,
I think they'll play with some heart. I think Cricky will cause Purdue some problems. But like I said, Purdue's not. I mean, that Morton kid's back. That Connor, the first kid's back. Edey's back. They've added Lance Jones, the transfer from Southern Illinois, that gives them some perimeter presence and some athleticism. They've got a lot of the same players back. They've got some depth. But this is the same Purdue team that they lose in the first round last year?
I believe they did.
They're not a great athletic team. I think they're more of a system-type team with a huge presence in the middle. So we'll see. I mean, if Iowa can come out, let's say Iowa comes out and makes 15 of 19 threes.
Well, then
you
we
never
have a
know.
chance.
They got a chance. And sometimes that can happen. So we'll see.
That's true.
6 o'clock tonight?
Yes, BTN.
BTN. Be there.
Or be square.
By the way, Doug Berman, who spent a good amount of money with us, did he not?
Doug Berman.
Burgum.
Burgum.
Does he drop out?
Yes.
He did?
Darn it.
You think Trump's going, whew?
I don't
You think Trump's relieved?
I don't think anybody.
Do you think Trump knows who he is?
Probably not. Anyway, he's dropped out.
How come you didn't answer that phone?
I did. They weren't there.
Oh.
I see.
Yeah. Are you doubting my prowess to be able to answer
They're back.
the phone?
They're back.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey.
I did something with my hand and it took off the phone. Anyway, now Georgia was yelling because they said, why should we, after we lost to Alabama by 3 points, why should they drop us down 5 places?
Because they lost late in the season.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yep, it is.
And Florida State was yelling because they said Ohio State won the national title with their third-string quarterback.
Yeah, I don't remember if Cardell was third team or second team. He was a backup.
He was third
Yep,
team.
for sure.
Yeah, I don't. Oh,
Yeah.
You know for a fact he was third team?
I know he was third team, yeah.
Okay.
Because my brother was thrilled about it because he's out in Ohio.
Yeah, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, they've got a clause in there, and Cardale Jones was better than the backups for Florida State are right now. I mean, I think he was more respected and what have you, but I don't know. I was not aware that he was the third-team quarterback.
Well, and this one guy said he was having a bet with somebody that they'd get an SEC team in there, and he said he won the bet.
I mean, I know people are saying, well, they're not going to go without an SEC team, but, I mean, Alabama did beat the number one team. A lot of it's what you do late in the season, and that's
a lot of
just
people accusing ESPN.
And Alabama did look good.
Yeah, and I just don't care. I mean, get me 4 teams and I'll watch them if I can. If I got time, I'll watch the games. But it's not like conspiracies, and it is what it is.
I said I don't particularly care for Michigan, and I don't like Alabama, but I do it for Michigan only because they're in the Big Ten.
I can't imagine the set of circumstances where I pull for Alabama, honestly.
Yeah, I'll pull for Michigan. I've got reason to, personally.
I'm just not an SEC person.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not going to lose sleep over the outcome of any of the playoff games. I don't really care.
No. I concur.
Tonight I'm hoping that we don't, haven't we had some of our biggest losses at Purdue?
We have, but we did almost beat them. Was it last year when Chris Murray was out?
True.
They've come back recently and made the games competitive after falling behind. But they've lost 5 in a row at Mackey Arena. But a lot of teams have.
Yep.
Now, Suter, did you go to the women's game on Saturday?
Yes.
And you saw the Bird down there? And
Sue Bird and Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah.
I sure did. Yep.
That was kind of neat. You knew we were going to win, and it was kind of neat how some of the girls that weren't hitting finally were hitting. Gabby, she did a good job, and
yeah, she hit her first 2, and it was It was very nice to see.
No, that was it was covered all over the freaking world. It's on, they covered it in English, Great Britain.
Because of Jason Sudeikis?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't imagine, does England care about Sue Bird? I mean, I know she's great, don't get me wrong, but does England care about...
Didn't she graduate from Connecticut?
Yeah, she went to Connecticut.
Yeah,
she's a great player.
Probably not.
All-time great.
Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah, and I'm not really familiar. Is he Ted Lasso?
Yes.
Which I've never seen.
Yeah, I never saw him. The guy next to me said, "Oh, that's Ted Lasso," and I said, "Well, I've heard the name, but
I hadn't heard of him
watched
until like about a
It's
year
like
ago.
a huge show, and I watched like 2 episodes. It's on Apple, and I just didn't.
What does he do on the show?
He's a soccer coach.
Yeah, he's a soccer coach.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen it
somebody
either.
said something about soccer. Yeah.
I haven't seen it either.
Well, I watched 2 of them, and I was kind of bored.
Yeah, and if you don't, some things just don't work for people.
I mean, I know him from Saturday Night Live and not Ted
Yes,
Lasso.
I never knew he was on side. Like I said, I'd never heard of him until about a year ago.
Well, he did get up and dance for us.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He didn't do too badly.
No.
Then at the end, they took a picture of him with Sue Bird and Caitlin.
Mm-hmm.
Was he here as part of a State Farm promotion? Is that?
No.
No, they're not.
No, he's just.
He's just here.
Yeah, he just came.
Well,
to
no,
watch.
I had read where there was a reason they were in the area.
Well, I thought he was just watching games and traveling, watching.
Yeah, but I don't know the specifics.
Aren't they all Nike?
That I don't know.
Signed with Nike?
Well, I was wondering, doesn't he run around with Sue Bird, and she wanted to come and see Caitlin, maybe?
I don't know if he runs around with Sue Bird. I know she isn't.
He was with her.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. They're obviously not a couple. I mean, she's
Yeah.
married to Megan Rapinoe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what the circumstances are.
Well, that could have been. They were just friends running around together.
Yeah,
Who
I don't know.
knows?
Hunter said they went to the Kansas game together, so who knows?
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, let's hope the weather doesn't get too bad.
Okay, Karen.
Okay, we'll
No,
see
we
you.
got 50s coming later in the week, and we're almost into mid-December. I mean,
It's been crazy.
this has been a wild. Well, we're still not into winter yet. What's December 21st?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hunter said they were just at the Kansas games.
Yeah.
It was a men's game. Yeah, Kansas and.
But there's a reason they're traveling to mid.
I'm looking.
But no, I thought that was cool. I mean, you say, well, it takes away from the game. Well, the game was the game was a massacre.
Was it Kansas, UConn?
Didn't they win 99-65?
Yeah, but I'm not getting why they're here. It says we're going to tell you why they're here, and then it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they just wanted to see a basketball game.
Evidently. Yeah, I don't know.
And if a Nike commercial pops up with the 3 of them in it, then we'll know maybe that was the tie-in. So we'll see. But it was kind of fun having them there.
Yeah. Why are they here?
I don't know.
I'm not talking again until you find it.
God. It doesn't say. Nobody says why they're here.
Okay, the next women's game is at Iowa State.
That's Wednesday, right?
That's Wednesday.
The men play Thursday.
6 p.m.
Dallas will be over there in Ames, and I think we have a press conference with Fran tomorrow. Rarely do we have them the day after a Big Ten opener, but this is a busy week.
Yeah.
This is a huge, and then they got Michigan, Iowa men. Isn't Michigan the next game after Iowa State?
Let's see. Yes, it is.
And what day is that? That's here.
That's on Sunday.
Yeah, this is 3 big games for Iowa basketball. They just better make sure that they can win at least one of them. At least one. You'd love to get 2. It's going to be tough to win at Ames.
That's going to be real tough to win at Purdue.
Yeah, it's going to be real tough to win at Ames, too. It's going to be tough for the women. I mean, Iowa State's not as good. They're
not.
But at Ames, they're tough. So, so we'll see. That crowd, that crowd's going to be all over Caitlin. But but lots of times she feeds off that.
She does. She likes it.
I do think Iowa's just a better team. So we'll see. This is a big week. Basketball's hitting full steam right now.
It is.
Why were Sue Bird and Jason Sudeikis at Iowa game? Hawk Central. Doesn't say. That's the headline, though.
Maybe they don't know.
Well, did you click on the article?
Yes. Yes.
Well, then what's the article say? You're not. You're like.
Iowa women's basketball and the Caitlin Clark Show continue to garner national attention. WNBA legend Sue Bird and actor Jason Sudeikis were seen in attendance. Hello.
Yeah. Hey, back to the football team. I'm with Pat. I could care less what these other bowl games do. I'm just looking forward to the Hawks versus Tennessee. Hawks are going to be flying and fighting, just like we used to say when I was in the United States Air Force.
Okay.
Okay.
I hope the offense is flying and fighting.
Thank you. Thanks for your service.
Yeah, thank you for your service,
absolutely.
too. Appreciate it.
So he did the dance. Wasn't the only stop they made. They were also seen in Lawrence, Kansas. Sudeikis is a Kansas native. Bird, of course, from Yukon. Heading into the matchup, Clark led all the nothing. Says nothing about why they were here.
Who wrote that article?
Edward R. Murrow.
Why would you? It's like you.
Sahil Kurup.
I've never heard of
USA Today Network.
Oh, it's USA Today. It's not anyone from the Register or Hawk Central.
No, but it's
it's part of the Gannett Network. Yeah, but you're right though. From what you read, they don't say why they're there.
No,
but their headline is why
they were there. Why are?
And they don't answer their own question.
Yeah, they don't answer their.
That's weird.
You're the journalist.
It's like they're trying to suck you in, even though they don't have the reason.
And they did.
And it may not be any. It may, but there's a reason behind why you do anything, And I thought it was cool. I mean, yes, this is a very unusual circumstance here with Caitlin and Iowa women's basketball, and ride this wave as long as you can.
You bet.
That's how I look at it.
Been a lot of fun. It really has.
But yeah, I'd never heard of Jason Sudeikis until a year, and I watched a scene from Ted Lasso, and my guess is I'd be with you, Captain. I would be bored, and I'd switch back. I'd switch back to the Rockford Files.
Shows I just got, I always heard about, Mad Men because it was, advertising and whatever, and I watched two of those episodes.
Boring.
And, just boring.
The lighting was strange. It was like they were trying to take you back to the 50s, and that's what did it take place in the 50s?
Go back. 60s, but, yeah.
We got enough people trying to take us back to the 50s and 60s.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to.
But, yeah, I gave Madman one look for like 15 minutes, and I'm like, eh.
I would like to see Happy Man. That's what
would you?
Like to, yeah, sure.
Shiny Happy People?
Yeah.
You played a good REM song when I was coming in. Follow Me, one of my favorites.
That's a great song.
Love that song by REM. Early REM. Yes. And then it was right after a Katy Perry.
Yeah,
nonsense.
Katy Perry.
You suck me in, then you punch me in the face when you get me in.
Punch you in the face.
Yep. Yeah, don't get too comfortable, Harty. Here's a little top 40 for you.
Punch you right in the face.
So, but yeah, it was. I felt bad for Deacon Hill. I mean, he's in over his head right now. He wasn't meant to be the starter this early in his career. But if he is the best you got right now, I mean, the Marco Lane is a true freshman. And I don't want to. I'm not trying to downgrade anybody, but they got to start recruiting better quarterbacks.
That's clear, and they have to develop them better.
And they have to start getting better receivers. They just have to. I mean. And I do, and I know I didn't want to put Don on the spot, but I think Kirk's offense, obviously, is more conducive to tight ends playing a bigger role because they're safer routes, more conservative, less chance for turnover. It's just easier to throw a short pass to a tight end than it is to throw to a streaking fast wide receiver in a tight window downfield, whatever. And especially if you don't have those really super fast wide receivers.
That's right.
And they don't have that right now. I think they need to really address this. If Kirk's not going to change the philosophy, and I get why he wouldn't because he doesn't have the personnel, I think they have to. I think they have to go into that portal thinking, yeah, we always need help in the other positions, but we really got to address our perimeter speed on offense. That's what we've been saying this for years, and now it's come back to haunt them because the play calling's not changing, but the game around them is.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's.
Ted Lasso's easily one of the best shows in the last 10 years.
Who says
Such
that?
a great show. Jeff Fett in the chat room.
And maybe it is. I
can't say.
It sucks.
I'm not going to go there.
I'm still going right.
Rockford Files or Ted Lasso?
Rockford Files.
All right.
Sugarfoot or Ted Lasso?
Sugarfoot.
Rockford Files.
Easy loping and cattle roping.
Rockford Files caused me to miss the second half of the Purdue Northwestern game the other day, and I'm pissed. I forgot about the game.
You got all the Rockford Files.
I know, but I was
like me. I got all these shows, and yet If it's on TV,
I do. I am like that.
Yeah.
This case was close with what's his name, Joseph Cotton,
Yeah.
the actor, and the one from what was that detective show, the two ladies, Tyne Daly and who was the blonde?
Cagney and Lacey.
Yeah, did you watch Cagney and Lacey, Suter?
No.
Which one was the blonde?
Susan.
But it was when she was really young. But then I completely forget about North.
She was great when she was older. Burn Notice. She was.
Well, then I wake up the next morning and see that Northwestern had won what was, people told me, one of the funnest games to watch. Did you watch it?
I did not.
92-88 in overtime, which makes me say Purdue's defense is not great.
Well, no, but it also makes me nervous a little bit that Northwestern's going to be more of a challenge than
I think Northwestern's going to be kind of like last year. They got they don't have the Ajin. What was his name?
Audige?
Chase Audige. He's a loss. I mean, he was good. He's easily their most athletic player. But most of the other guys are back. And Boo Bury's maybe the best point guard in college basketball right now.
He's
What's this, like his 8th year?
At least.
Guy in the chat room, I thought Ted Lasso was a Western.
Well, when I first heard it, I thought the same thing.
Fair enough.
I thought it was some cowboy thing because of Lasso. I'm pretty simple. I'll admit it. I'm pretty simple. Yeah. But yeah, it's a soccer coach, and you either like it or you don't. I mean, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Or you don't have a feeling either way because you don't get Apple.
Well, I can't get rid of Apple.
And you don't like the
I've dealt with Apple.
Major show that's on the stream. And you don't like
Apple's
That's ironic.
Apple's a pain in the ass.
You can't get rid of it. I swear to God, I even found, after 45 minutes, I found a phone number. I called it. It was Apple. She said, yes, we'll cancel you right away. Nothing.
And you're still getting billed?
No, yeah, $5. Well, they haven't raised it, which is good, but I can't get rid of it.
But my transition from one phone to another because the one died with Apple was so annoying. It's going to be as annoying as trying to vote for the freaking Heisman Trophy today.
Yeah,
that's going to be annoying.
Who are you going to vote for?
I don't even know. I mean, I was going to vote for Bo Nix until they lost. I can't. So Michael Penix. Everyone keeps saying the quarterback from LSU, Jaden Daniels, I believe is his name. He does have monster statistics. He ran for over. They lost 3 games though.
Yeah.
And I don't like Brian Kelly, so it's personal. I mean, I'll look at him, but I have no idea. Marvin Harrison, had they beaten Michigan, and he had a bigger game, he would have probably had my vote. But they didn't beat Michigan. He did okay in that game, whatever. But no, I haven't. I don't. Maybe it's just me, but I don't care about the Heisman Trophy. Like I used to be interested in the back. Remember when running backs used to win it? Remember when it was just dominated by running backs? But that shows you how much the game has changed now. Now it's a quarterback. Now it's basically who's the best quarterback. That's what it comes down to. But I loved the Heisman Trophy when it was Billy Sims and Charles White and back there in the Tony Dorsett.
OJ.
OJ was a little. I was 4 when OJ won it.
Yeah.
So I don't remember.
Vote for OJ.
As a Heisman Trophy winner or a double murderer.
Do they have an award for that?
Well, he's a Heisman winner / double. He won it in '68. I was 4. But no, it was all pretty much. I remember Pat Sullivan won it, Auburn quarterback. I believe that was in '73.
Now you usually when I was 4, and then you usually asked me what I was doing.
Well, then you were what, 20 years in radio?
I was doing this.
'68, you were like 20 years old, weren't you? 21.
Doug Burgum, by the way, is blaming his
guys?
loss on his commercials being put on libtard stations like KCJJ.
Is that what he said? I doubt it.
That guy never stood a chance.
No.
Did he ever register more than like 1% or 2%?
I don't think. No, I don't think he registered.
But his checks cleared, though, right?
Oh, they were
you bet.
They were great.
Greatest president candidate.
Loved them.
Yeah.
Greatest presidential candidate ever.
Ever.
No. It's that guy from Wisconsin.
Steve Forbes.
Well, Steve Forbes, but the guy that ran from Wisconsin 4 or 8 years ago, he had
Scott Walker.
A huge
Scott Walker?
schedule. Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, but nothing like. Listen, I first came here, and we needed money, and we got this check.
Steve Forbes to the rescue.
Steve Forbes gave us this check for it was what, $4,400, I think it was. And
I thought it was a lot more than that, but I thought it was 20,000.
No, it wasn't 20,000,
Okay.
but it might have been more than that. But anyway, and the people at the time that were here said, "Well, this is a mistake." And I said, "Well, it ain't our mistake, and we can't even run enough amount of spots for this." I said, "Sure we can,"
And we did.
and we did, and I mean, we took breaks. I play a song, play one of his commercials, play a song, play another one of his commercials. We ran every one.
You think people were sick of him by the time it was over?
I think they were sick of him by the first day.
I think you're the reason people didn't vote for him. But hey, money talks.
Well, we
I've
needed
always-
the money then.
But he was flat tax proponent.
Yes,
Yeah, and,
yeah.
I like that.
I do too.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't get why we're not. I seriously don't get why we're not. Everything would be
Because the super rich don't want to pay their
don't want
taxes.
it. Yeah.
And
And it's easier for them to find loopholes and ways
And
not
they
to
do-
pay their
and
taxes.
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why.
And that's on both sides.
That's why they don't want to fund the IRS. They fund the because the IRS has enough money to go against us because we don't have lawyers and crap like that. They don't have enough money to go after these big law firms that hide this crap for their clients. I just don't. Same reason we get hit up with royalties all the time. Same reason we get hit up with all our other crap is because the big guys are all, surrounded by lawyers.
My nephew just took a
Deflect.
shot at you. My nephew.
Yeah?
He said Ted Lasso is way too positive for the captain. No wonder why he was bored with it. My nephew.
Hey, that show sucks.
So what's your message to my nephew?
No, I don't say
Yeah,
that.
he's a big boy. You're going to tell him he sucks?
Telling him he sucks. He's
a devoted listener.
Maybe he just doesn't have the same taste
Yes,
that
I think
you
that's
do.
what it
How's
comes to.
that?
I think that's what-
I don't like that.
So what is Ted Lasso on? What
It's on Apple.
Okay, so it's it's not on a major channel.
No major channel would put that bad of a show on.
You've seen some of the stuff on major channels?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Man, there's zero. Honest to God, I feel like I should be in a nursing home now because at night there's nothing on to watch. It's all reruns and crap, and I don't have the time to get into something right now with what's going on, so I'm going to bed watching Family Feud.
Ugh.
See, there's so much content that I want to watch that I don't have time for. And I don't watch any network TV, and I haven't for decades.
This woman gets on Family Feud, and it's the way her hair is, and Jan goes, that woman's not going to do anything. And I said, why? Well, look at her hair. And
Was she right?
I don't even remember
Yeah.
how the Family Feud played. Was that Gene Rayburn?
That was Match
Richard
Game.
Dawson.
Richard Dawson, that's right.
Well,
okay.
yeah, he couldn't have done it if he
Well,
was.
no, I know he's not doing it now, but who's the host now?
Steve Harvey.
Oh, okay.
And he's
the one,
really good at it.
The one who you can't stare at him?
Huh?
You can't make eye contact
That
with
was
him?
during his daytime show. I don't know if you can. I think you can stare at him.
Well, I read a story
You
where none of his
can't.
workers could make eye contact with him.
Well, maybe you don't want to see him.
Yeah.
You know?
But no, I haven't watched Family Feud for.
I can understand that.
I haven't watched a game show in years.
Mm-mm.
I'm trying to think of the last time. Is The
We
Price is
went
Right
in-
still on?
Yes.
Who is it still? That
Drew
Carey?
Yeah, we went into Olive Garden last week, and all these restaurants have been told keep the news channels off the monitors, whatever you do. And so they had Game Show Network on, and it was like Gene Rayburn, the Match Game. I think it was like Match Game 69.
With Peggy Cass.
Yeah, all these. Jan just gets so pissed off when she goes, all of these people are dead.
Do they ever show replays of the Gong Show anymore? Can you find those anywhere?
Not that I've seen.
I've not seen them anywhere.
Yeah.
I used to watch that. I mean,
Yeah.
I got a kick out of that just from Chuck Barris and Gene the Dancing Machine.
Yeah.
That's what I watched. And wasn't it J.P. Morgan, Pat Paulson?
Yeah.
And
J.P. Morgan.
And what was the other one? Joanne Worley. Wasn't Joanne Worley
Yes,
part of
she
it?
was
Screaming with her sequins.
Charlie Weaver.
Charlie Weaver. That was Hollywood Square.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Charlie Weaver.
Artie Johnson was Hollywood Square.
Do you know something? We went into this antique store, and they had a Charlie Weaver doll.
Really?
Yeah, and what do you think they wanted for it?
125?
$1,190.
Who's Charlie Weaver?
He was Cliff Arquette played the role of Charlie Weaver, and he was a comedian, and he'd get a letter from Mount Ida, and he'd read letters from home and crap.
Never heard of him. Was this the 60s, 70s?
60s.
Okay, before my time.
Yeah.
It's before my time.
Yeah. Yeah. Has to be what I was doing.
What were you doing in the 60s?
What about Rosanna Arquette? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was not aware of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how fired up were you when the game started Saturday, and were you giving Iowa a chance? Were you sitting there looking at Ann saying, "Hey, we can do this. We can do this"?
Yes. I thought we had a chance. I wasn't positive about it. I mean, I think we're going to do this, but I was, we got a shot.
When did you think it was over? We got no shot.
When they got to 17.
Yeah, I mean, when it was 10-0 at halftime, I said, well, they're within striking distance, but they can't move the ball.
I think I also said at that time, I said Michigan's probably already got enough points.
It looks impossible for Iowa to score.
Yeah, they just
can't score.
They've probably got enough points.
And yes, and the turnovers were big. I get that. All I'm trying to say, two of those three turnovers Michigan caused.
Yes, they did.
They did, but they broke down the protection and made plays. Now, the other one, it was really interesting what Don said about the pass, because just the casual observer is probably not going to notice. But, yeah, that Michigan defender played beautifully.
Yes, he did.
And Jazz was exposed. So, I mean, yeah, Michigan forced those turnovers, whereas Iowa couldn't. If McCarthy's really good at scrambling, I'll give him that. But I just was not impressed with him.
No, not really. And fine, take that touchdown away, and it was 19-0.
Yeah.
I mean,
that may affect the gambling part of the game. I'm just trying to see.
I was pulling at the end for Michigan to miss the field goal so that all the a-holes that bet the under would have lost.
By the way, J.P. Morgan is still alive.
No.
Yes, she is 92. Boy, she was hot.
Yes, she was. Yeah. Oh, no question.
Yeah.
She's still hot at 92?
Well, I haven't
Probably
seen,
not.
No, I don't. They don't show a picture of her.
Oh, I thought that's what you just said.
No, he said she was really hot, and she was.
Ohio State safety Kai Stokes plans to enter the transfer portal.
Yeah, they do show a picture of her older. She ain't bad.
What'd you think of Kalec Manis entering the portal?
Well, you see why.
Minnesota had like 10. Yeah, because they got a guy coming in.
They got a guy who threw for 3,600 yards at New Hampshire coming in. And, yeah, I mean, I think they said
goodbye.
Goodbye. And yeah, have not been impressed with Kalec McManus.
No, I haven't either.
He's inaccurate. He's a decent athlete. He's got some height, but he just can't throw into tight windows. I mean, he's been a big reason why their offense has kind of underperformed. And so yeah, Minnesota's they have got their Cade McNamara, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And people, I mean, Iowa basically, when Cade McNamara announced that they're not going to be able to get a quarterback in the portal. He's their guy. But there's a risk with that because you don't know how healthy he's going to be. I mean, he's had 2 serious leg injuries in each of these past 2 years, but they're throwing all their eggs in the Cade McNamara bag, and that's their right to do, but I believe there's a risk in that.
And there's a big risk in that. And, well, we've already seen what the risk is.
And my other concern was his knee was healthy for the first 4.5 games this year. They were into Game 5, and I know the quad issue was an issue, but it wasn't enough to keep him from starting, and he didn't play very well.
No.
That was the storyline for the first half of the season is, I know his quad's an issue, but, man, I thought Cade was going to play better than this. But he wasn't. Remember, wasn't he barely completing 50% of his passes?
A little over 50, yeah.
And against Penn State, he looked helpless. And so, there's no quarterback coming in to save the day unless Cade McNamara ends up being that quarterback.
Well, it's got to be him.
And, they've got the James Reeser kid who's still committed from Florida in the 24 class. I would be shocked if at least one current cornerback didn't leave the portal. It wouldn't surprise me if 2 did.
Nope.
Nothing would surprise me.
That's
the age we live in. It's
yep.
nothing against Iowa. It's not an indictment against Iowa. Okay, here's what. Do you think Brian Ferentz coaches in the bowl game?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
What if he lands a job before then?
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
We had a discussion on the way home. There's part of me that thinks he'd be better off moving on, and trying to set his course for the future. But, I mean, obviously that's his decision. I mean, they've given him the right to coach throughout. But I'm sure unless he's just planning on taking a year or two off to be with family and kind of regroup and whatever, which I'm sure he could afford to do.
Yes.
That was more power to him if he does it. But if not, my guess is he's probably networking trying to land a job.
I would certainly think so.
And maybe someplace says, yeah, we'd like you to be our offensive line coach for this NFL team, but we need you now. Or something. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. That game's in almost a month.
It
a lot can happen in a month.
Yeah, they're arguing in the chat room who is hotter, J.P. Morgan or Julie London.
Julie who?
London.
Who's that?
She was a singer, too.
What, in the 50s?
She was...
J.P. Morgan is the answer.
Yeah, in Emergency.
What about Joanne Worley?
Huh? No.
Didn't she used to scream a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have big sequin. She'd always have like some big shawl on over her shoulders and was flying around.
Do you want to hear the coach from Florida? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
Florida State.
Yeah. Yeah, he's pissed off.
Sure.
Travis, he tweeted in part, I wish my leg broke earlier in the season so y'all could see this team is much more than the quarterback. I thought results matter. Now his coach, Mike Norvell, echoing that same frustration. Here's a bit of that.
I was just hurt for our players. I mean, to be honest with you, that was, it was one of the tougher moments I've had to experience, and your truest identity shows up in times of great adversity, and we faced it.
John, many feel that Florida State earned the chance to go for the national title. Good thing, though, that they are moving to the 12-team playoff next year, so hopefully we won't have this in any sort of fashion
Screaming
again.
Next year. We
Team
deserve
13,
to be in.
you bet they will.
Yeah. But, it's a tough call. I feel sorry for Florida State, but they do have the clause in there for a reason. I can go both ways on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was surprised. I thought Don might take the side of Florida State as an old tradition.
I was a little surprised.
But he's going with the new system, and I get what he's saying because without their starting quarterback, they're not near the team they would be with him.
No.
And do you think anything really interesting is going to happen in the portal, Iowa football-wise, leaving or coming?
I think both. I think we'll lose somebody that we don't anticipate, kind of like Justin Jacobs last year.
Mm-hmm.
Was at least to me was a surprise. It might not have been to you, but
you think they're going to get a bunch of great skill players to come in on offense?
I would think the lack of an offensive coordinator isn't going to help that because we've already got an offense that's not very appealing to your.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get proven players from other Power 5 schools as receivers.
Probably not.
Why would they come here? I mean, they've got an image problem that they have to
unless it's a situation like Caleb Brown was in.
Where he was buried on the depth chart?
And wanted a chance to shine.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, just a comment on the bowl committee.
Yeah.
I think they put themselves in a situation where they have to root for a team to lose. Because what happens if Florida State wins against Georgia? They're going to have all sorts of egg on their face. So, those guys are going to be just hoping and praying that Georgia beats Florida State so they don't look bad.
Probably.
Yeah, and I think with the backup quarterback they will.
Yeah, probably.
But no, that's a good point. Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think they should have been put in regardless. And I kind of think maybe Texas should have been the team left out. I know they beat Alabama.
By 10 at Alabama.
Yeah, but that was early season. I don't know if they're going to go with the eyeball test like they're trying to say. Then maybe you could put Alabama ahead of.
Well, I think one thing Texas had going for it, its one loss was to a 10-2 Oklahoma team. It wasn't a horrible loss. So, but no, I'm with you. I mean, it's just I feel bad for Florida State.
And it was a big rivalry in the past.
And it was
Texas,
on a neutral.
Oklahoma.
It was on a neutral site too.
Right.
So, but
I'm just I'm probably going to pull for Florida State just to watch.
Oh, I'll be pulling for Florida State to win
bet.
I think a lot of people will. They're the sentimental one now. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, great show, guys.
All right, thanks. But yeah, no, I mean, I think a lot of people will be pulling for Florida State, but they have that clause in there for a reason, and I think we're seeing why this time.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got, Captain?
Oh, well, the coach of Florida State also said He found Ted Lasso to be quite boring.
Is he blaming this on Trump or Biden?
Trump.
Trump. Trump was in Ankeny yesterday, wasn't he?
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah.
I think he was in Ankeny.
Yeah.
And they showed something on Twitter, people praying over him. They had their hands on his shoulder and they were praying.
Yeah.
That's like a cult.
They were praying. These are pastors.
Yes.
They were praying, and then he gets up and it's all hate.
Well, I know, but
and it is. I mean, I read
that praying
excerpts.
stuff is just
It's just bizarre.
Freaky.
This is not this country.
No, well, it is, unfortunately.
Well, but it should not be.
But it is.
There ain't nothing to do with prayer in this country.
People can pray all they want. It just shouldn't infiltrate government.
No.
I mean, but here we are.
Wouldn't it be just great if there is a God, but right when you die, God said, "Hey, there ain't nothing after this," and then just pulls the switch.
Then it's over?
Yeah, then it's over. Well,
yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, great. Good idea.
That sounds great. Yeah, I can't wait to go to church on Sunday. Yeah.
He'll show them.
And with that. Anything else?
Let's see. We mentioned the women. When's the next wrestling match up there?
Probably. Wrestling is versus Columbia on Friday at 7.
Okay. But basketball men have Purdue tonight, Iowa State on Thursday, Michigan on Sunday.
Yeah.
This is a big week. And like I said, they got to avoid going 0-3. 1-2 will be even frustrating. But if they could go 2-1 this week and have the loss be at we'll watch them go 2-1 and the loss be at home to Michigan or whatever. But no matter how 2-1 would play out, that would be incredible for this week.
That would be real nice.
My guess is they're going to go 1-2.
Would be.
And the win will either be Michigan or if they were playing Iowa State here, I would pick them.
I would say we'd win.
I think they would win. Just like I'm saying, I think Iowa State will win there. I think that's how even the teams are.
I think our victory will be Michigan.
Yeah, this is not a great Michigan team. I've seen them play a couple times. They can be beaten, especially here. So, okay.
All right. HawkFanatic.com. Check it out. It's free.